The goal of this is to develop skills related to keeping in precise formation with tanker just by looking at it, without the need to have to look through the HUD. From now on, forget about the cockpit of your plane. Look only at the tanker. This is very important for later. But before you try it out, take note that once you have to use the tanker as a reference rather than some abstract numbers, rolling, pitching and changing throttle settings each works slightly differently and requires axis-specific inputs. This is crucial to understand, so you can avoid pilot-induced oscillations later while trying to catch the basket. Pitch is the most straightforward. As long as the plane is pointing up or down from its level flight attitude, it will climb or descend. The bigger the attitude difference, the faster the altitude change. Level off and the tanker will stop escaping you vertically. Nudge, observe, counternudge. Roll is more tricky, as you can move across the tanker with wings perfectly level, as long as your heading is different than that of the tanker. Think of rolling the plane as accelerating it sideways. The more you roll, the faster the acceleration, and the longer you hold it, the bigger the final speed. So in order to keep that from running away, use the following technique. Roll the plane slightly, just to get it moving to one side, and then level the wings. Once you've arrived at the desired position, roll in the opposite direction to arrest the lateral movement, and then level the wings a split second before the speed is completely killed off. Nudge, level, observe, counternudge, level. Throttle is similar to roll because you'll need nudge, counternudge technique, but it is more difficult because it lacks of instantaneous response, which means you'll have to make your moves ahead of time. If you move the throttle slowly, you'll be behind the aircraft all the time. If you make big movements, the plane will run away from you. In order to avoid that, for acceleration, firmly add throttle, then immediately retract it to a position just a hair above the previous setting, so the engine quickly starts spooling up, but it stops before getting into too high thrust. For deceleration, do the same, but in the other direction. Don't try looking at the tachometer. Look at the tanker and just learn to anticipate the power changes, as well as how much movement on the throttle is required for them. Listen closely to the sound of your engine and act before it changes too much from the baseline node of RPM required for flying tanker's speed. Overnudge and listen, almost return, observe and listen. Learn to use the same amount of any given axis and hold it for the same amount of time for both initial nudge and later counter nudge, as this will increase precision and efficiency of your steering by reducing the amount of needed corrections. Try the nudge steering with relation to the tanker, and once you're comfortable with it, establish a position on tanker's left wing to the side and aft of it and hold it there. Trim as required. Focus on the wingtip and superimpose it over distinctive features of the fuselage, like windows, markings, doors or antennas. Try to keep the relation between the wingtip and selected feature to be as constant as possible. Correct any mismatches with the nudge steering technique you've learned before. Forward and aft with throttle, up and down with pitch, and close in or move away with roll. Be specially aware that tanker's wingtip moving towards front or rear of the tanker could mean either you're drifting left-right or forward-aft. The difference is that in the former case, the tanker will change its apparent size. Pay attention to that, learn to recognize the type of drift, and correct accordingly. Once you can keep your position, let's try changing it on demand. Descend below the tanker and hold it there for a moment, then return to low altitude. Move forward to fly parallel with the tanker, then fly back to the previous position. Descend again and then move laterally to the other side of the tanker, then climb into a position on its right wing and stay there for a moment. Go into a position behind and below the tanker at its center line and stay there. Don't fly behind the tanker at similar altitude, so we can avoid its wake turbulence. As you can see, it leads to something, but for now try this set of exercises until you become comfortable with them and you can demonstrate satisfactory level of precision.